Thank you very much for your time and a good morning to you.
Fine morning to yourself and your listeners.
It's been a while. How have you been?
And welcome back. Welcome back to the air.
Thank you. We are most grateful.
Right.
Yes. I was also wondering how you've been. It's been a while since we had a conversation with you.
Oh, I'm fine. I still work in Parliament, within the parliamentary service as a research officer. I also do here and there contributions with within the party and some of these established just to lend support to the party. I also do some small farming, in northern Ghana. So that's how I've been occupying myself. Yes.
Oh, it's fantastic. You farm, so that helps.
Yeah, I do some bit of farming, yes.
How is it going? Because I've spoken to, I know you know Honorable Minta Kando, you know Bernard Mona of the PNC, and they are all singing the same language. It's much more expensive. In fact, Bernard Mona said he's had to reduce his farm size to less than 50% all the way because he cannot afford the cost of cultivating it. How are you? I guess you will be doing better since you're a former Deputy Agric Minister.
I'm
you have your ways and means.
I'm doing better. If I were doing better, I would not decide not to go to the farm this year.
Oh, you're not farming this year?
Yes, I took a decision not to farm this year so that I can roll back, think through my difficulties and see whether I can come back again in 2023. The reason being that I am a very small seed farmer. I produce seed, and I've not been paid for seed that government has bought from me the last 2 years. So I really don't have money to go back to the field. And I can't take my daily, what they call maintenance money to go to the farm with the unpredictable nature of the environment. So I've decided that I'll give myself a gap year, slow down this year, so that next year I can see where I can go back. Yes.
Oh, okay. The cost, is it the cost of producing the seed that is now making you reconsider whether or not it's a good venture and maybe trying to find some more money before you go back?
Well, the cost of production is one of the issues. But the more important one is that if you sell off to government and you don't get paid, clearly you don't have money to be able to go back to the field. That's the issue. And incidentally, if you got the money, you won't be able to do the same scale as the season before because cost of everything has really doubled in certain cases. You know the situation with the fuel prices that are going up, fertilizer is going up, etc., etc. So clearly, even if you had the money, you will not be able to do it at the scale. And a situation where you are not getting the money in 2 seasons conservatively, clearly that will be extremely difficult to go to the field the 3rd year with your savings if you have any. So that's my situation.
Oh, okay. And I wanted to find out, were you somehow benefiting from the impulse from the Planting for Food and Jobs program?
Yeah, only in terms of buying fertilizer at the what do you call it, the global subsidized price. Beyond that, I will not get it. The first year, I took I got some fertilizer from the Minister of Food and Agriculture. Unfortunately, I lost my farm to fire that year. The farm completely burnt out. I had paid half of the cost. Then when I harvest, I paid the remaining half. But I didn't harvest, so I made a complete loss. That was the first year. I think that was 2017. Then 2018, things started to pick up. But apart from that, I don't really go in specifically for if you like, benefits coming from government programs. I want to farm like a typical farmer.
Okay. But for you have been at the ministry before, and
Yes.
you know how important these interventions can be too, because majority of our farmers are smallholder farmers. Even those who are able to cultivate huge lands still struggle with matters of cost.
Yeah, sure.
The minister who has been implementing the Planting for Food and Jobs program for some time now scores it at 100% efficient and at 100% success rates. Do you agree that it's been that helpful, so efficient for a lot of farmers, so helpful?
I'm not sure. I mean, in terms of the scheme being helpful to farmers, I'll say yes. People were getting input, and testimonies were coming from various farmers. They were getting the fertilizer and seed and subsidized prices, etc. But it will not be fully accurate for the minister to score himself 100% or pronounce the program a success. One would know that there were real challenges with the scheme. Number one, I think the minister's number one focus was food security. If the Planting for Food and Jobs was to really succeed at all, food security is key. So you ask yourself, since the scheme started, we had really stable food prices on the market because of the increased production that the minister said has come about, or the prices of food has been going up. And I think the second option is the correct picture. We have really had food prices rising since 2018, so to speak. And it's quite a crisis almost today, because food inflation is what is really contributed to the general inflation that we have in the country as of today. Inflation is 27.6% or so now, and I think food inflation is higher than that, which means that that's really contributing to it's not really contributing to stabilize the economy, so to speak. So clearly, there may be increased production, but the overall management has not really helped to make the country food secure. In other words, food security must be has three elements. There must be availability, there must be access, there must be affordability, and then before we even now come to talk about the quality of the food that we consume at table in the household. So these are all factors that really go to show that there are challenges with the program, and the minister should admit. So as a country, we all come together and see how corrective measures can be undertaken. I've not spoken about the real issues about the resource management within the scheme. You know of millions of dollars of fertilizer getting missing, and our inputs being taken across the borders, etc., etc. These are all challenges with it. And note that it's the same minister who, at a certain point, at some time, I think last year or so, who had to say that our security system must ensure that food is no more taken out of this country. If there was enough and more than enough, how come that he was the one stepping forward again to say that food should not leave the country? Clearly showing that something definitely was amiss. And we all know that on a daily basis in our households, our own spouses go to the markets to experience the rising cost of food on a daily basis. So nobody should, we don't have to be told that this is a successful program. It could have been successful, but definitely there are challenges. And we must admit it as actors in the sector.
A few things, because you were talking, because you are saying that the outcomes should be what they should use to assess the success of the program? Because you're talking about food inflation.
Yes.
But sometimes when you listen to him, he says the food is available. The problem is transport. He's not in charge of transport.
Yeah, but he's the same person who said the food was in abundance, and therefore the food was cheap in the market. He is the same minister who was saying that. I'm using his own assessment of the situation, and then I'm comparing with the reality. So he himself told us. Did he not know that there was transport costs when he said farmers in northern Ghana were now wealthier and were now roofing their houses with zinc instead of thatch, etc., etc., etc. Also, he was the same person who was saying that. And the same person who rolled back when the whole country was saying that price of food was rising. He said no. He would have known if his wife had told him. Because his wife hasn't told him that the food price of food is going. I don't know how many times his wife goes to the market anyway. But he said so. So what I'm trying to say is that, you see, as somebody who is in charge of the entire system, you must make pronouncements that reflect the reality, not just what you think should be what you should say. Because the minister has never, in his pronouncement, faulted when it comes to the Planting for Food and Jobs program. But we all know that because the program is being implemented by us and for us. So we all know that there are challenges, and it is time to admit it and do the reviews and see what corrections can be made. But to continue to tickle ourselves and believe, particularly if we follow the minister's pronouncement, all is fine. It is just the transport cost that's going up. Transport cost is part of the economic situation. So your pronouncement should reflect what the input of transport in respect to the cost of food. I remember the Deputy Minister of Finance, Honorable Kuma, made a similar statement on television or on radio. I remember seeing him making those pronouncements. I seem to say we can speak about the economy without talking about food security. No, we must. That's what government exists to do, to make to take decisions that can bring down challenges that confront the people. Particularly that food is basic, and everything has to be taken. All measures must be taken by all governments to ensure that food is not only available, but it is also affordable.
You have been at the ministry before, because it's the Ministry for Food and Agriculture. So the agriculture must lead to food.
Yes.
And if you read, even right now, on the website of the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agriculture,
yes.
One of goals modernize agriculture sector of the economy in order to, one, first thing, improve food security. Yeah. You have been at the ministry. If you're doing an assessment of whether or not you have food security, what would you consider?
Well, I don't know whether I understand your question properly, but the number one goal in every agricultural sector management is to ensure that your citizens have food security. Now, you have to ensure that food is available in the market. It is also affordable by the average citizen. And then the quality of it is also assured. For people that we just don't eat food, we eat so that we can be healthy and grow well, particularly for those of us who are either aged or are children. So these are the elements for respect to food security. So you don't
availability, affordability, and quality.
Yes. Yes. And you don't say. I know that the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is to focus on production so that the food will be available. I agree with this. I will agree with that entirely. But you must also ensure that, because you sit at cabinet with your other colleagues, you must also ensure that that availability is not jeopardized by economic things that will come to ensure that the food is not affordable. That is why the Minister of Food and Agriculture is supposed to ensure that the entire chain, up to the time that food is on the table, citizens are well protected for the benefit of citizens. This is the way I understand it. And so every single occasion where so it is not a small issue if the minister's number one objective is food security, after which other issues come, things like good job creation, things like import substitution, etc., etc. Those are all part of the objectives of the ministry. But the key thing is food security. If the people are not well fed or so, you will not get the opportunities to do the other ones. You will not have enough to achieve the other objectives. That is fact.
And so things like, because I was speaking to, like I said, I was speaking to your former colleague, Kobina Minta Kando, who talked about how much it cost him to even use the machines on his farm.
Yeah.
He said every day cost him like 10,000 Ghana cedis to fuel them alone. So what that means is that fuel should be a part of the concern of the minister, how much it costs to fuel those things. Because I know there are NGOs which basically do provide tractors to smallholder farmers to help plow their lands as their way of assisting them. So can you take away the matter of transport fuel from this whole discussion?
Yeah, but I know that the issue is that the minister himself is all over the country building warehouses. At least that's what he tells us. He's building warehouses. These are all meant to support farmers in their effort to achieve good market price. And you cannot take good market prices out of the transport situation. So there must be if we know that transport is what is making food prices to go up, then that's the problem. That's the problem identified, and that must occupy thinkers within government to try to see whether something can be done about it. But to just leave everybody to relate with transport the way they should, as if the agricultural sector or food commodities are to be transported like the way citizens go to the bus stop and catch a bus and run, it's certainly not going to be the situation. I think that farm energy, farm power is something that should occupy management of the sector as of but yesterday, not even today. And therefore, I know that there were issues of trying to see how much, to what extent, energy demands by agriculture could be looked into, and to see whether some of the challenges with respect to that particular knot within the chain could be looked at carefully. We must understand that the agricultural activities are a complete chain, and every single knot has challenges. So as you analyze and solve problems, there will be other problems coming up. I'm not sure that the minister, for instance, knew that by today, the Department of Food and Jobs program will face challenges such as this high energy costs that we are being confronted with today, and therefore may not have factored that in. But now that we see that the problem, he shouldn't dismiss it by deciding that he's not in charge. He should take it on and then get his government to sit and see how a solution can be hammered out. This is the way I see it. For instance, we know that many decades ago, farm credit was a challenge. And that's why providing farmer with credit is literally institutionalized within the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. There's no single multilateral project that comes to the ministry that doesn't have a credit component, just so that beneficiaries can be cushioned in terms of funding. That is how we must also look at farm energy and also the transport situation with respect to. So it's not just about increased production, but must also look at post-production activities that can result in high food prices even after we've increased production on the farms.
I'll end with the matter of credit because he has an interesting proposal he's been pushing nowadays.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to find out from you the matter of subsidies. When do they come in? Because we just had Mr. Edward Carway, General Agricultural Workers Union, telling us that subsidy for this year has been reduced to 15%. Volumes of fertilizers that they are supposed to implement the subsidies on are also going down. It started with 50%. Is there something we do not understand about policy making here? Because we thought government was supposed to come in when it is more expensive, and not when it is cheaper and then run away when it is more expensive. How does it work? Do you understand something that we do not understand? What are we missing?
Well, my small understanding of subsidies is that it is always considered within the context of the entire economic health, the health of the economy, and how much subsidy it can accommodate for the various sectors. It's not only agriculture sector that's enjoying subsidies. There are other sectors too that are enjoying subsidies in one form or the other. And so when they look at the overall health of the economy, see how much funding is available, then a decision is taken as to the level of the subsidy. This is the way I understand it to be. And so it is often not healthy to criticize those who are in charge when they are considering a subsidy program within a certain context, when you know fully well that this will be the situation on a daily basis. I remember when we were in the Ministry of Food and Culture, we were giving subsidies around 40% or so. At some point, we did 21%, etc. The current Minister of Agriculture, who is now considering to do 15%, when the number of cities to buy a bag of fertilizer is much higher, was publishing articles condemning us as to how hopeless we were. In fact, he was not charitable at all, which is an assessment of our poor performance, if our performance was poor. In the newspapers, he would not even make us sit so that we can have a discussion, and he will tell us what we think or what he thinks would be solutions, because he was chairman of the Agric Committee in Parliament. He wouldn't do that, but he would rather put it in the newspaper for everybody to see that we are doing very badly. So there he is. He started with 50% subsidy and shouted how good they were from the rooftops, and now that's whittled down to, and when you were doing the 50%, I think a bag of fertilizer was just around 150 Ghana cedis or so, or even less. Today, he's doing 15% when a bag of fertilizer is, 400 cedis or 300 cedis or more. Those are the situations you must look at if you are a manager, and be less exposed to, if you like, the media setting, when you don't have a full assessment of the situation and what you can do. So clearly, you must have asked for a subsidy for the agricultural sector, and at cabinet, them that, well, this is the quantum of money that's available, and if they calculate, they see that only 50% can be accommodated. That's why he has to come out with, and I think that is the situation that confronts us, but not him. That confronts us within the agricultural sector.
So it is the money that they have made available to him that he will decide what it will account for in terms of subsidy.
Yes, because you have to do. I'm being supportive of the minister here, even though I didn't get that type of charitable assessment from him when he was in the minority way in government. The fact of the matter is that he has got to take his papers to cabinet and justify why he has to do fertilizer subsidy at 50% or 40%. And I'm saying that they are going to subject that to the totality of the economy and what the health of the economy is and what it can accommodate. And secondly, it also now depends on what the government around the cabinet table, with inspiration from the president, sees as priority. If they see that some other sector should have 50% subsidy, but agri should have 50%, well, that's what they will give to him, and then he will come out and pronounce that to us. Unfortunately, this is the way I understand it to be.
Okay, let me end then by asking you. He says they will pass a law to compel banks to offer a certain level of credit to farmers. Would that work?
I think that we have moved away from that type of system a very long time ago, and I don't know why he in particular and his government will be going back to that type of system. In those days, most monies in banks were if like government money, but they were all public. So you could really sit and instruct them to do A, B, or C. But today, how many banks belong to the government to be able to do that? The second thing is that why is it that he didn't involve them at the beginning of the Plan for Food and Jobs program? I'm sure there would have been, the financial institution would definitely have had an opinion with respect to credit. But he didn't, because at that time he had money from central government to run his credit system. I know that he had the first budget for Plan for Food and Jobs was nearly 750 million Ghana cedis or so. Why did he not involve the banks then? To what extent some of that money could be put through the banks for, excuse me, for them to lend to farmers at maybe his predetermined interest rate. That's a question that must be answered. Now that he's run the program and hitting a block, he wants to now pass a law to compel banks to give credit to farmers. Number two, there was also GESA, which was the Ghana incentive-based risk-based system of agricultural lending, which was meant to be an institution to run between to ensure that the Bank of Ghana will support the commercial banks with some security or some insurance, and then they can feel comfortable to lend to farmers without fearing that they will lose their money. This was launched by our government, and the process of establishing the secretariat institution ran when we left government. They came and continued, and I know that in 2019, African Development Bank and the Bank of Ghana put in money, 10 million UA units of accounts, and then Bank of Ghana put in 200 million or so. In the budget statement, the Minister of Finance made a lot of pronouncements on that. Hundreds of millions of cities for GESA, an institution established to de-risk credit management within the agricultural value chain. What has become of that? Then he has now compelled banks lend to lend to farmers. I'm not sure that system will work, but we wait and see what that law says. Because you cannot say that should happen when you are, if you like, giving the banking system more to the private sector to run than your own government bank. I don't know how that is going to happen. So if you want to have a bank that can lend to farmers at a predetermined lower interest rate, then establish that type of bank and let it run maybe with GESA with the risk system and insurance being a big component of it, then we can see that you have an institution to do that. But to pass a law to compel banks to take a portion of their lending portfolio dedicated to agriculture, that can happen. But where in agriculture we give lending is also important, because I think that if a bank lends money to a businessman to import rice or poultry products or whatever into the country, that bank will feel that he will get his money back if they bring in rice into the economy than if he use the same quantity of money to support the local rice farmer produce. But if we had a system where GSR was really operating and the risk lending credit lenders within the banking sector, the commercial bank will feel fine, because they have some insurance with the Bank of Ghana and can lend to farmers without any challenge.
No, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Welcome.
Dr. Yakubu Alhassan is a former Deputy Agric Minister, speaking to us on the comments by the Minister for Food and Agriculture, Dr. Owusu Afriyie Akoto.